Hello everyone, Autumn here, and today I'm speaking with a very talented filmmaker and artist. Let's get started. Please go ahead and introduce yourself for me.
My name is CK Thornton. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I am a filmmaker.
Yay! Yes, you are, and we met at Dead Center Film Festival, and I'm really pumped to have your energy and your time here. I know we already took up some time chatting casually, but I'm really excited to be able to have some more of your time for others to be able to hear more of our fascinating conversation. So I want to talk about how you got into filmmaking. How did you do it and why?
That it's interesting because I think everyone who gets into film has a little bit of a different meandering path. But I'm born and raised in Southern California and very close to Hollywood.
Mhm.
So for me, it was always something that was there, but never really presented as an opportunity for something that's viable, a viable career. I went away to school to UC Santa Cruz, which wasn't really going away. It's going up north in California. But I had this idea that I wanted to work in marketing and publicity. But when I came back home to start, I got an internship on a film. And once I started working on set during production, my whole world changed. My whole world was rocked. And I realized I don't want to be marketing the films. I want to be making the films. And I think that was a huge pivotal moment in my career because it felt just like this reckoning that happens. And I'll never forget that moment either. And from that time, which I think was 2011 to now, I've been working in film. But like I said, I've kind of had this meandering path where I worked as a producer's assistant for 4 years for some really great producers, learned so much from them, and then ended up going out on my own producing. Then went into art department because I kind of needed to find a job that was a little bit more controlled in terms of the hours I was putting in. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to then start making my own films. And it wasn't till later on around 2017, 6 years later after I started working in film, that I realized I don't want to just be working in film. I want to be making my own films. And that took a little bit longer for me, I think, to realize because sometimes I think, I don't know for sure, but my feeling is I think as women, sometimes we're not presented with this as an opportunity that we can do this, that we can be the ones behind the cameras making the projects. I see it as that way now, but yeah, 2017, I had my second reckoning of I can't be producing other people's projects if I want to have time at the end of the day to work on my own. So that's kind of where I started going into art department, working in set decorations as my money hustle job is what I would call it. And from there, starting in 2018, 2019, I started working on my own projects, scheduled to shoot my first project in 2020. That changed
Oh,
and ended up starting to shoot my first project that I worked on called The Drop Off, which is a 36-minute film that we shot in 2021. And then from there, I shot my second short film, which is called Mother Martyr, Salt and Saints, that we shot a year later. And I shot Chicken Salad 2024, beginning of 2024. So I'm trying to stay on pace to do a project roughly every year, but all three were projects that I worked on that I wrote, directed, and produced. So I only think I was going to able to, I think I was only able to produce them because I worked for producers before. So I already had a great idea of what they entailed in terms of the work. But yeah, so that's kind of been my film journey so far. And now I'm working on my fourth short film and a feature at the same time.
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's good.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for detailing that journey. It's so interesting thinking about the amount of time between each stage, for lack of better word, I guess, in terms of like how long you got to really train in each of these pieces, you know?
Absolutely, because I worked for two producers and a director for almost like I think it was 3.5, 4 years.
Wow.
And that was pivotal in terms of my overall knowledge of filmmaking. I was very fortunate to work with some high profile producers and a director, and that for me it was my film education. That was my film school. And then from there, going out and producing projects, that was a whole different view of things coming from an assistant point of view to then being the producer, where I produced shorts, web series, documentaries, and feature films. So that was a really interesting, pivotal moment. And I kind of had to go through that where it was great. And also, it's a grind sometimes. And you kind of have to figure out that balance to have the moment, though. I couldn't have had that moment of in 2017 being like, this is if I want to keep producing, I can keep producing.
Yeah.
But if I want to make my own projects, I need to make time for that. And what does that look like? And it was having to reevaluate my whole livelihood as a producer and figure out if I still want to work as a filmmaker, where can I go? Or not where can I go necessarily, but what do I want to learn next to help me further my directing and my writing and my producing endeavors for my own projects? And the best explanation for me was art department, because I wanted to be able to understand the cinematic language, to be able to paint a moving picture. And for me, that was a big thing about everything inside of everything inside of the frame.
Yeah.
I already knew the camera, like I could build a camera package and so forth in terms of the paperwork and all of that. But that for me was somewhere that I felt vulnerable and wanted to go into next. And from there, it kind of snowballed into some great shows that I worked on. And it was a great income to have while I was still working on my other projects.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where I was able to segue to keep working on my own films at this point.
That's really amazing. I want to know, I have several questions that come to mind, obviously, but I want to know before I jump into asking you more about art department work, I want to know within PA work, producing, and then art department, what do you think the most vital things you learned were in each of those roles that have come to aid you in your own projects now?
I would say the same thing throughout is write everything down. It's a simple, simple thing, but I learned very early on working for these producers that don't waste anyone's time. Write it down once. It's very simple. And if you have questions, follow it from there. But it's as easy as just writing something down. If someone's teaching you something, write it down. Even if it's just on your phone on the notes app, just it's a second way of learning something, right? Repeating it back. But that was really important to me. What I learned, being kind to people. You can see what it looks like on the opposite ends when people are tyrants, and it doesn't make anyone feel good at the end of the day. So, kindness, always treating people with kindness, always being respectful and demanding respect in return as well. Doesn't matter what position that you're at, everyone deserves to have respect. And then show up on time. That was a big one, I think, over the years too, where I've always been a very timely person. And so, it's when other crew members are waiting on you, it's just disrespectful. You should never do that. I really live by that as a big important factor in terms of respecting your crew's time as well. But those are, I would say, are the biggest basic things
Yeah.
that you can carry on through not only film, but any artistic endeavor, really.
Yeah. Well, in any endeavor at all. I
Yeah,
think it just applies
really.
to the world. Let's all make an effort to be better in all three of these things,
Be
and I think
kind and
everything will be
respectful at
okay.
one time.
Please, please. No, completely. That is wonderful. And I did. I wrote those things down. So thank you.
Good.
Are you allowed to say who you worked for? Just because you put so much hype
Yeah,
over.
of course. I mean, I worked for Joanne Seller and Daniel Lupi were the two producers I worked for. Joanne Seller worked with Paul Thomas Anderson for about 20 years on his projects, and that was the director I worked under as well. I worked on his films, The Master and Inherent Vice. Those were the two. And I was very fortunate, though, where I started as an intern and Joanne had me be her assistant. And so then I worked with Joanne and Daniel, and then I also worked with Paul. So between all three of them, I was assisting in for all of their business stuff between all three of them. But those were the ones that I started working with, and then went out and started producing these other projects. And one of the ones that I was really proud of, which was an interesting project, was In Search of Voodoo, Heaven to Roots. And that was with Jaimin Hansu producing it and directing it. He's an Academy Award nominated actor. He's phenomenal. So that was a really interesting project for me to work on as well. But and then once I got into art department, I worked on Big Little Lies, The Morning Show, the first season of The Morning Show. For All Mankind, I worked on a couple seasons of. And then also even worked on, I don't know if you've ever seen All American. It's a I
I'm
worked on
familiar
that
with
for a
the
little
title.
bit. Those are some of the longer running shows I would float from. So yeah. So it's been a really interesting experience because I have worked on all different mediums from or different all different formats in film, from short films to features to series to web series to documentaries. I've had a good experience working on every single type, which is I think it's good to kind of bounce around from each one to see what world you like. The only one I haven't worked on, and I'm okay with that, is reality TV. That's the only one.
I think that's okay. I think that's okay. Let the professionals do what they need to.
Yeah, I'm okay without resetting furniture on Love Island. That's okay.
I don't want to know what that looks like. I really
Yeah.
don't. I'm okay. That's really amazing. And I'm so genuinely grateful on your behalf that you have gotten so much like truly priceless knowledge from professionals who've been doing for a long time, yes, but also just building so much of your own experience within so many different formats, like you just said. I think that's really invaluable and not something that, a ton of people get to do, or at least not the people that I'm around right now. But also,
It all varies too. And I think one of the learning lessons from early on in my career was sometimes like I love to talk, I love to chat, I love to be able to learn a lot about people. What I also learned though is being a wallflower is really good too. When you're picking up on everything, notice where the camera's placed, notice where the lights are pointing, where are the lights? Where are the actors? What does the furniture look like? Look at the stage. If you can be a wallflower and take all of those worlds in, that's also something that I think is really powerful. But instead of making sure in a way that you're like making sure that that everyone knows you're there. Sometimes it's nice to take a step back and be able to look at the whole world and see how it all works because it's like a well-oiled machine. It's this beautiful thing that people put together, shoot it, and then break it down, and it never exists. It's the coolest thing when you actually see how everyone's doing their job and how intricate each job can be. But yeah, anyways.
I think that's truly invaluable. On that note, I want to hear more about your art department experience. You said that that was an area, and please correct me if I misunderstood. You said that was an area where you felt a little more vulnerable. Is that correct?
Yeah, I felt as though cinema is a language unto its own.
Yeah.
And I felt as though if I was going to be directing a project, how can I translate what I want? And
Mm.
that for me started with art department. And it's understanding the mood, the colors, and so forth. But I'm a huge art history nerd. So I always start with paintings
Oh,
for inspiration. So my thinking was, if I can translate what I want onto a moving canvas, what does that look like? What is that language? So for me, production design and working in this world with other production designers and set decorators, that's where I kind of start my projects is everything within a frame. And then I kind of write the project. So I work a little bit backwards because I'm more visual.
yeah.
A lot of people will start with a script, which I think is great too. I will start with a world. I will start with tangible objects. And I think that that worked really well for me with working in set decoration. And I also attribute it, it's so weird, not weird, but I went to, I just corrected myself very quickly.
Right?
Growing up, I'd go to antique stores with my parents quite a bit. And I think that having a tangible world and seeing old things and being able to put them in a set and knowing that you're creating a character world that needs to feel real was something that was really intriguing to me. So I wanted to learn how to build that before I went into other aspects of my learning on my learning journey. And that was also, it was a period of time where I was shooting out a lot of emails while I was still working as an associate producer on, I don't know if you've ever heard of the show Good Mythical Morning.
Yes.
I
What?
worked on
You were an
that,
executive producer for them?
associate producer, and just for a little bit, but it was that point in my life where I'm like, great show.
Yeah,
I'm looking to do
different.
something different.
Right.
So what does that look like? And it was just literally emailing everyone in my network, being like, I'm available for work. And because it's all about networking in film. So once you kind of get this network built, you got to kind of keep in touch with them so you can make sure you're like, I'm still here. And that's what I ended up doing and ended up getting a job on Big Little Lies, working in set decoration. So that was really cool because it was just a whole different world. It was a series. I hadn't worked on a series like that yet. But yeah, it was a very good education.
I I'm feverishly writing down questions so I don't forget anything. I really that is wild. My responses to you are gonna get so redundant because I'm really just like so starry-eyed about like everything that you've been able to do and how you approach your education and how you take it into your own hands. And I can we're gonna talk more, which we already knew, but we're gonna talk more about your process because I feel very similarly in terms of world building. Being able to picture a scene first and then build like a full story around that is my perfect day, you know?
Yeah, it's all about just writing it down the moment that it happens. I'm just like, I'm really good about if something strikes me, I write it down. Otherwise, it's these. Have you ever read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic?
I haven't. Tell me
It's
more.
this, if you're an artist or anyone who's chasing the artistic endeavors in life,
Yeah.
it's a great book to read. It is Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, The Signature of All Things. I think Big Magic is one of her best books because it's all about living a creative life and how to do it. And just giving words of wisdom in it, which I found really fascinating. She always said there was a poet that she references in it about how this poet would see a inspiration coming and she'd have to run inside, write it down before it flew out the other way. And I always found that really powerful because I think it's the same thing for many artists, where it's like you said, a snippet of something, right? Well, if you don't write down that snippet, you're just not going to remember it later. You're having 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day as a woman. So, which is true. You have 40 to 60,000 thoughts per day.
How does that make
So,
you feel? Just
um,
not to derail your thought. I didn't mean to.
exhilarating at a time. I mean, they could be simple things, right? But also they can be very complex thoughts. But I think as an artist, it is so important that when that thread of inspiration starts weaving something, you need to listen to it and you need to write it down and build upon it. Because otherwise, it's just going to completely dissipate.
Yeah, I completely agree. You should see the note in my notes app. Calling out the notes app, I was really like, "Ah, she gets it. She knows."
I'll clean out my notes app occasionally, and I'm like, 1,200 notes. What have I been doing? And there'll just be like random words in there. But I clean them out occasionally now because I just have to kind of keep everything organized.
No, absolutely. But also like create a note and use one note. You know?
Yeah. Or I keep the same title for notes. For instance, I'm working on a feature and it's called The Botanist. So at the top of the note, I'll put botanist.
Sure.
And then when I go to compile all the notes, all those notes will come up and then I just copy and paste and put them into one. But
That's
anyways,
great.
yeah.
That is great. Now I'm gonna ask you a real question
Okay.
for realsies.
I feel like
Um,
they've been real.
you know what?
Pressure's on.
Slay. I love it. You're right. I want to dive into obviously all of these, you had several positions that allowed you direct access to professionals to add to your network.
Mhm.
But what advice might you have for filmmakers, artists, creators as a whole, and really anyone who wants to do anything in terms of how to build a network effectively, how to do that in a way that really works?
I think it's hard for me. My chair's going to keep squeaking. We talked about this.
I
Okay.
can't even hear it. You're good.
Okay, good. I think with As an artist, it's this necessary evil. I hate to use the word, but it's networking, right? Going to different types of events. And even as a filmmaker, I'm not saying just go to the movies, just go to film networking events. I like to mix up many different things. If you're in a place that has really great art programs, it's going to different gallery openings, it's going to different music shows. Those all those people kind of vibe and gel together. So if you're looking to build your creative network, go to creative things. I think it's really important to put yourself out there and be okay with being vulnerable. I think it was something that I wasn't really when I was in my 20s. I was not myself yet. I didn't come into my own being, I think, until I was in my late 20s, really, like maybe 28, 29. Now I'm in my 30s and I'm like, if someone doesn't like me or doesn't want to keep chatting with me, that's fine. No sweat. It's fine. I think it's putting yourself out there is the only way you're gonna build a network. It's DMing people or talking to people on Instagram and building a community that way. I met a really wonderful filmmaker at Dead Center who also lives in Los Angeles. And multiple great filmmakers at Dead Center from LA. I've already done a Dead Center reunion with a couple. And then I had a meeting with another woman whose film premiered there, I'm pretty sure. I think it was it was a documentary that premiered there. But I slid into their DMs and I was like, it was so great to meet you. When you're back in Los Angeles, let me buy you a cup of coffee. $5 can go a long way for a lot of knowledge. I've realized that over the years. And it's just a way to make someone feel good, just in terms of it's just buying someone a cup of coffee to ask questions and then hopefully maybe at the end be able to include them in your network, but not being afraid to get out there and talk to people because you never know who people are connected to. Oddly and weirdly enough, they talk about what 7 degrees of separation. It's very true. You never know if that one person is going to lead you to your financier, if it's going to lead you to your lead actress. Which is so interesting in itself, my films star one of my cinema sisters, and she's been in all of my films because I can't imagine making a movie without her now. Chelsea Hoops and Chicken Salad.
Yeah.
And I met her through a girl at Good Mythical Morning. And it was this weird connection where I just blasted out random text messages to people that said, "Hey, I'm casting a project," did not give any more information. And I was like, if you know anyone interested, kept it very vague. And my girlfriend called me and was like, I know someone who I think would be great for you, especially being your first project. She's grade A actress, comes prepared, but I also think you guys will really hit it off. And boy, was she right. We've been friends for 6 years, and now we're going to be co-producing a project together, and she's casting the next film, which is really wonderful. It's like, that's what it's like. Sometimes you just got to shoot your shot, keep shooting it, and being open, being willing to put yourself out there and have conversations. You never know where they're going to lead to.
Absolutely. That's great. You're just dropping hot knowledge. I really appreciate. I
Well,
really
I think it's
thank you for
important to
being
pay
here.
it forward. I think it's so important to like anything that I've learned, I would love to share it because I think it's important in that way to kind of keep the creative wheels flowing or just creative energy going, flowing in that direction. I think arts are so important. But anyways, keep going. Sorry.
I think you're my kind of people. I'm really pumped. Anyway,
This is why we became friends at Dead Center.
and I loved your movie. So let's start talking about that. Let's start talking
Okay.
about
Okay.
making your projects. There are so many things I want to know in this category and in this capacity. But I want to know first, you gave a brief overview, but I want to know, was there a specific moment where you realized I have a story to tell and I have so many that I'm going to tell?
I think each project has its own seed of inspiration or moment of conception, so to speak.
Yeah.
With the drop off, my first film, it was very specific, and I can sensory wise can remember the moment to the T. I was driving to my dad's house and he lives out in the desert and everything was dry and brown and there were spots that had been burned because it's California and we have a lot of wildfires. And the sky was just piercing blue. And I was driving on the road that I used to drive with my parents to go back and forth as my parents were divorced. So me and my sister always went back and forth between the houses. And I just had this moment, this awe-inspiring moment of how beautiful the desert was. I was struck by it. And then I started thinking about what it was like as a kid driving that. And then I realized, oh my God, there was a whole nother person in the car with me and my sister, and it was my parents. And then I started thinking what it was like from their point of view to do this drop off day, like every single week,
Mhm.
and what it would be like to have to confront someone from your past and put a smile on your face for the sake of the kids. And that was something that was just mind altering to me. All of a sudden understanding my mom and my dad. What? Yeah.
Literally.
And so I ended up taking that and I wanted to make a Western, and it was probably me being a woman wanting to do something masculine because that's just who I am. Because I'm going to be like, oh, cool, I'm going to learn everything about Westerns. I'm going to turn it on its head, and I'm going to go ahead and make something else by breaking all the rules. So that's a big thing for, yeah, I do that a lot. I like to at least.
Love
So
it.
that was the inspiration for that. Mother Martyr came out of the Uvalde shooting. And that was something that was really intense for me because it just felt like it came and went in terms of the information and just how we are so we're so disassociative now with mass shootings, especially in schools with young children. And I started thinking about what it might be like to be a mother to get the phone call not after but during. And what can you do as a mother if you are 30 minutes away per se out in the countryside, not being able to drive to go to your kids rescue right away. So what does that conversation look like over the phone? And so it's called Mother Martyr Salt and Sate, and it takes place in a kitchen with one actor, and you don't hear the other side of what's going on. So it's all you're just piecemealing it together. That was for me just that shooting itself was, I think, just really powerful for me to just realize how what it would be like as a mother. And I had two films that I never thought I would be shooting from a mother's point of view. I'm not a mother. And so I found it really fascinating that that's where my brain went with both of those projects. And then Chicken Salad came out of trying to make a film at my house. I like to have like a problem so I can solve it. I wanted to shoot one more time in my house before I moved. And
Oh,
also, we were my girlfriend and I, Geffen Shakur, who actually was the cinematographer on the project.
mhm.
She wanted me to write a poem for us to shoot something. And it started out as very small 2-page poem. And then once we got to, and it was more just about moods and what do we want to shoot? What do we want a room to look like? And really just kind of do these really beautiful vignettes and just kind of play in this weird world.
Yeah.
And then once we got to shooting, I threw out the poem. None of it made sense with what we were shooting. That project though, like to answer your question, we can go into it more after, but to answer your question, that one came out of Geffen proposing me to do a poem for her to shoot. And so it was us going through these moments of like, well, what are shared experiences? What do those look like? That might be something that's universal. And we're like, heartbreak. So we played with that as our motif going throughout it. And then the healing aspect of it as well, going through not only grief, but then the healing after. Some interesting stuff we've decided to tackle. Just say it lightly.
I don't mean to leave you in silence for, for that long. It's just like literally letting the information absorb in my brain of that
Like, where do I take it from here? No, I was kidding.
just a moment of like I'm driving the car. Do I turn? Um, because that is so interesting, and I think it's really important that you did choose to share all of those specific inspiration points as well, because I think there is such a skewed perspective from those who don't necessarily consider themselves creatives, whatever that means, um, on what like that aha moment looks like, especially with how it's been portrayed in like older media and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's part of why I think this series is so important. But like being able to understand that you take from a world experience, you take from a personal experience, and then making it less personal to you and more personal to people you're connected to. And I completely relate with Drop Off, so I'll be dropping the link.
Yeah, it is interesting because I never thought I'd be writing about these things. And those are the moments where they talk about listening to your gut, right? Truly though,
Yeah.
those are the ones that kept knocking. Those were the ones that kept saying, "Hey, we're going to keep coming up. We're going to kind of keep bothering you." And that's the same with this next project. I wrote this project 2 years ago, my next short. It's called For the Sake of Hannah. And I wrote it 2 years ago, kind of tabled it, didn't think it was the right time. And all of a sudden, Hannah's starting to knock again. And so I was working on a music video, and I've decided to table that project and work on this short instead because it just feels way more timely. So it's just you kind of have to listen to the inspiration. There's this really great saying, and again, Elizabeth Gilbert's the Big Magic. I highly recommend. I would read it every night before bed. Just felt so good about life. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and she talks about the eudaimonia, which is what the Greeks used to call the creative genius, that you yourself are not a creative genius. You house a creative genius.
Mm.
So I found that always really beautiful. And also the more it's your eudaimonia that's kind of knocking to make sure that you're listening, that you're hearing these things. And you can keep ignoring it. But if you're feeding it and giving it sustenance, it's just going to keep growing and it's just going to keep providing for you. But I love that whole idea of you are not the creative genius. You house one inside of you, and you have to be good to it and treat it well, and it'll be fruitful for you. It'll bear fruit in terms of your creativity.
I love that. I love that so much. And I feel like it aligns so much with there's another quote, not from Big Magic, that talks about how the artist is the inner child that survived. And I feel like in a way it kind of goes hand in hand, just in different languages in a way, you know? And I think
Yeah.
if more people were to be able to think about that and think about how they do have this energy within them, and it's about how they fuel it or choose to not fuel it that allows them to exert more creative energy, to exert the identity of artistry, then I don't think the question of are the arts important would be asked.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, Glad we made it there. So I want to be able to hear, well, is your next project something you want to talk about details of, or do you want to keep it on the low and keep it to yourself?
No, I'm always happy to talk about my projects. I think there's a time and place in terms of keeping things under wraps, but I think sharing about your projects is really powerful because it starts to make it real. So
Yay!
the moment you start talking about a project is the moment you're kind of giving it legs to move. But the next one I'm working on, it's a period short. It's called For the Sake of Hannah, and it's based in Los Angeles, California in 1942, post Pearl Harbor bombing. And it follows two Japanese sisters as they go through an assembly center. And I don't know if you know much about that part of history, but Japanese Americans were sent to internment camps during World War II. And for me, it was a really intense history lesson for me as a Californian. Because as a kid, I would drive to the mountains and there was remnants of an internment camp. And I never understood what that meant. And for me, later on in life, I wanted to just go through the research of this and kind of get a little bit more understanding of what this part of our history looked like. And it was a very, very dark part of our history in California. And the more I was doing research, the more I realized how little people actually knew about it. And that struck me as someone who's being white. learning about this culture and what happened in California, a state that I'm like, everyone is equal here. We don't have that history, but it was a very racially charged time in our history as well.
Mhm.
So that was the project I tabled a couple years back because it just personally in my life I was going through a lot and chicken salad seemed way more important
Oh,
of a project at that time. And now I feel like Hannah is the project that I want to be working on. But it follows two sisters in an assembly center, which was the precursor of the centers that they went to before they were assigned an internment camp. And yeah, and so it was a pretty brutal part of history, especially because when they came to these assembly centers, they were forced to live in horse stalls at Santa Anita Racetrack. And yeah, so for me, it was just what does it look like for two sisters who were separated from their parents, who were probably born in Japan, so they would be considered the Issei generation? What does it look like for the Nisei, the second generation, to go out to be separated from their family, and the older sister Izumi having to take care of the younger sister Hannah? And that's just where the project developed. And from there, I'm like, why am I choosing to shoot a period short? That's going to be really expensive. But here we are.
yeah. Expensive
I,
but important. And I think important gets expensive.
yeah, and for me, more so because it's important, but because it needs to be historically accurate. I
Yeah.
am a white woman, and although the two main characters are women, I have to make sure that what I'm portraying on screen is presented with historical accuracy.
Yeah.
So it's been very heavy in research. But yeah, the project is in the works right now. I'm starting to raised a little bit of money so far, and now I'm going to start doing grant applications for not only fiscal scholarships, but for money as well, just donations. And then I'll probably do a crowdfunding to get the last little bit. But that's what I'm working on at this moment in time.
Where can people find those links and those ways of helping you to fund this project?
Well, the best way is probably to follow me on Instagram, and which is directed by Cortney with no U. Name is spelled wrong, but it's right for me. And that's where I do all my updates. That's where I try and be as talking head as possible about like, hey, this is where I'm at in the process. And going from there. So right now I'm still on the tail end of chicken salad, that short, still doing festival submissions and going to festivals. And at the same time, which is why I also go to festivals, is you never know who you're going to meet.
Mhm.
So doing that, and then the co-producer, Chelsea Yakuta Kurtz, who's in the other projects,
Yeah.
her and I are co-producing this project and starting to build our pitch deck for that world.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm really pumped and I'm very excited to do I know I've said that 5 times. But I am. I am truly pumped. I think that's wonderful. I think that's important work. I know that you're going to do everything in your power to ensure that it's historically and culturally accurate, which is maybe the most important piece. Cut the maybe. But yeah, I think that's wonderful. Good luck. Let me know what I can do to help you.
Thank you. I'll keep you posted on the project. We follow each other on Instagram. I'll be
We'll
bombarding you with my
talk.
DM, telling you what's going on. It's fine.
Yes, please do. Please.
Well, I
Like,
always laugh with updates because people are like, how do you give film updates? I'm like, well, a lot of it's in front of my computer working, right? At this stage. So I am trying to be better about even if it's just me talking to the camera, that's the updates I'm giving updates because I realize that people, as every artist is what I'm learning,
mm,
people want to be a part of the project. They want to know the process of things, especially a medium that has multiple different facets of production to get to the final piece. It is fascinating the road you go. It is fascinating the problems you have to overcome with interesting, intricate solutions. So I'm trying to be I am better about it now. I would definitely say that that's something that I've definitely improved on over the years is making sure people know what's going on in my filmic world.
proud of you. And on top of that, that is the best transition that I never asked for because I wanted to ask you because of what you said about how you imagine the visual first and then you narrow into a script from there. I want to hear about your process. I want to hear about your process from beginning to end. What does that look like for you? How are you making a living? How are
I-
you doing all of those things? How is it a business? Tell me more. Give us the gritty details on how you make that come to life.
So you have two questions is what's my process? And then you said, how do I, what was the next one?
How do you make a living?
Okay. Well,
How are
that's
you making money? Help.
so I'll go from the process one to then over to what I deem money hustles. You have your
Great.
art hustles and you have your money hustles.
Love.
Don't put the pressure that they need to be both. We'll talk about that after though. My process is when I am interested in a subject, I um I become obsessive about it. And basically what I like to say is every good filmmaker is a really amazing detective. So you get one little spark of inspiration and you follow it and you follow it into the depths and you keep going and you keep going. We can get Lynchian on this and get David Lynch in this, where the deeper you go, the bigger the fish. So
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever read his book, Catching the Big Fish, but that's a great understanding if you're taking the meditative aspect of it. But it's taking a subject and turning over every single rock. So even with, for the sake of Hannah, I have read, and I'm not joking when I say this, 20-ish books on the subject. I highlight. I then take my, because I told you I'm a copious note taker, as I think we talked about earlier on with me telling everyone to write everything down. Um, I highlight in books. So if you've gone to school, it's really powerful in terms of how we studied from textbooks. Highlight, take notes, take those notes and put them into your note app and do your own summarization of it. And then from there, that's when I start to pull things where things that were like really intense to me or important. But you basically become a detective. You become a researcher. You become an expert in that field. Once you've become an expert for 5 hours, let's say for every 5 hours of work, I like this quote from Aaron Sorkin. For every 5 hours of work, there's like 15 minutes of writing. And there's truth to that because you're completely developing, like enveloping this world. And I think it's really important to understand things thoroughly. So if anything, so you know how to understand your story better and what you're trying to tell. And that's kind of how I think where a story turns and twists and the direction it starts to go is based on how much knowledge that you have to begin with and continue to absorb and take in as you go through the process. But I'll usually start with that as part of it is like research material. As a filmmaker, don't be afraid of academia.edu where people upload their thesis papers because that one is fantastic. I don't know if you guys use that for school. Do you have to upload your own projects to that?
Considering that my project is less paper
That's
oriented,
true.
yet to be
Okay.
seen, truly. The
Okay.
graduate program is not built for projects like this. So
Yeah,
I'll let you know. TBD.
but I love to go to different scholar websites or different educational websites because again, I want information on things. And not every project is that way, but for the drop off deep into the research on Western cinema, deep. And it varies across countries. So it's like not only am I learning in the US and a certain time period, especially 19th century the 19th century West America. That was a really interesting thing. But I'll start with like scholarship, academic papers, books, and then I move to the visual realm of paintings. I'll usually start with paintings from all different time periods. I don't limit anything, but a thread of inspiration will start getting woven through some different aspects. So for chicken salad, I was really into Maya Deren. That Julia, who is a programmer at Dead Center, her and I just like totally became cinema sisters because we both love Maya Deren. Buñuelo, Luis Buñuelo, and then also not Salvador Dali, but also looking at his artwork. But Man Ray was a photographer, and he also dabbled in filmmaking. So it was kind of starting to, I was playing with like the Dadaist and then the beginnings of the Surrealist movement. So you can tell in that one, it's very obscure, it's very experimental. And that was definitely shying away from what I had traditionally done with narrative projects. But yeah, each one kind of lends a different thread that I start to follow, obviously, with crafting a cinematic story. But it starts with written research, and then I move into my visual palette, which is usually paintings, because my whole thing is I want to paint a moving picture. I call myself a filmmaker, but I also call myself a pictorialist because I paint moving pictures. So that's, I always want what you see within a frame to be really luscious and to everything to make sense in that world as well. So that's my process.
Amazing.
And then what I would say for my money hustle
Yeah.
is for a very long time I worked in set decoration.
Right.
And I'm still picking up art department jobs where I can. Like I just worked on a commercial a week and a half ago. But the film industry is changing its landscape. And what used to be my bread and butter, where I was working full time, nonstop, went just kaput based on not only the strikes that happened a few years ago, but there's just a contraction going on overall in Los Angeles, especially because a lot of productions are moving out of town because of tax incentives, better tax breaks, which I totally understand. But unless I'm willing to travel a lot, I'm not getting as many jobs. So I have picked up other alternative jobs at this point where I'm working as a bookbinder. I work at a letterpress studio, which is a really beautiful process. I don't know if you've ever made a book from scratch, but
Yeah.
it's it's a if you're an artist and you love tangible items to have something at that to show for it at the end that's like a beautifully bound book is really has been really special for me as someone who loves to create. So I do that, and then I'm also getting my real estate license because I've worked in decorating. I've also had a couple random interior design jobs in the past year. And so between that set decoration and I've done okay with real estate over the years as well. I'm just going to get my license to start going as that and have that be my plan B. But the point is what I had a friend very early on, he's an artist named Joe O'Neill. Wonderful. He told me very early on, along with Elizabeth Gilbert, that I read in that book, don't make your art your money hustle. Don't put that pressure on it right away. It'll come when it's ready, but always have just because your art doesn't have to be where you make money as well. Eventually, that would be great if you can have those two. But we have to also be realistic in that we need to eat at the end of the day. We need to be able to pay bills. And that's okay if your art's not bringing that in because at the end of the day, your art's for you. And if it can be put in front of an audience, all the better. But I truly took that to heart because working in set decoration for so long, it was a little hit to my ego not being able to get work. There's no doubt about it. It was like, what? Am I not good enough to get hired right now? But then you talk to 9 other friends who are also out of work, and you're like, wait, this is a systematic problem right now. But you still have to be able to figure out how to make ends meet during the every single month, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always like, have your money hustle and then have your art hustle. And if those worlds eventually intertwine, that's great. But don't ever be discouraged because your art isn't making you money. Because the moment you put that pressure on your art, the moment it doesn't belong to you anymore. And I always found that really fascinating to even think of it that way. So that's why it's like, even though filmmaking can be pretty expensive, the more you build those networks, the more people want to help you out, the more you can kind of keep the cost down, and not putting that pressure on it means that you have way more control over your final project as well. So yeah, that's how I would tell you in terms of like how I eat is I eat books. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it. See, I knew something was up at the bookbinding. I knew it wasn't just making things. Come on.
Yeah, it's actually a great studio that I work at. And my friend's just like she's taken me under her wing and shows me how to make these really beautiful projects. And we've done some really high-end books and done some other weird work projects for other high-end companies. And it's like, didn't even know this world existed. So now I have like a story in the back of my mind that I want to do as a bookbinder one day for a film
Yeah.
that's later on.
I know you've written it down.
In my
That's
notes app.
right. As we've established, the best place for it to be. But not on one document, not yet.
No, multiple.
Right. Right. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know like sometimes it's kind of weird to ask like, "Hey, are you actually making money?" especially with the stigma of a starving artist. But for the reason of people just not knowing, and especially with so much production moving out of LA and out of California, it's something that people want to know, you know?
Yeah, so it's like it's okay if your money's not coming from your artwork. It's nice when you do make a little bit of money on it for the time being. And we all hope that we're going to be that 1% that just blows up. That's right. But also living the life as an artist
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you're going to have these high successes. It means living your life for the sake of art and that it needs to be seen or that it needs to be heard or felt. And that has nothing to do with, should never have a monetary value put on it. So, yeah, it's okay to have a job that's outside of your art. And I think it's really important while you guys are going, while you're in school, to
Yeah.
know that as well, getting out, that
Yeah.
it's okay to have a different job that's not the same thing as your art. And you almost should have it something, I think, a little bit different or have them differentiated at the beginning so you can see how to build those contacts and then when you're ready to make the leap, make that leap. Save up enough money first though before you do.
Thank you for that advice. I know I needed it for myself very much, and I appreciate that. So, yay! But you're giving me so many really seamless transitions, and I really appreciate that because you don't even know you're doing it. But I have two more questions for you. And because of what you said about, keeping art for you and it truly being as an artist, you live for the art. I want to hear why the arts are so important within your life and why you believe they're important to the world.
Those are some loaded questions.
I know
Um,
it.
I think art is important because it's another type of language that we speak with each other.
Mm,
And I don't think there's anything in my life that has brought me greater joy than the act of creating. And there's something to be said that we were given this gift to have the ability to create and to use it. To not use it would just be shameful.
yeah.
Um, but to the world, I think art brings people together. I know that that's a really basic answer, but it truly does. It's why I think I love cinema so much because it brings so many people from all different backgrounds, all different parts of the world for the sake of art, for bringing them all to have a common mode of entertainment, cinema, to feel. And it's everyone coming together for that specific experience. And I think that that's why it's really important for the world because for me, for my specific artistic medium, there's nothing more vulnerable, first and foremost, but more powerful to me than being able to share an experience of seeing movie pictures in a cinema with people. It's just the experience overall is, especially in Los Angeles, don't get me wrong, we have amazing film, old theaters here, retrospective theaters. But the collective experience of seeing, feeling, experiencing art together I think changes lives. There are still moments in my life that I still remember watching movies and seeing them with an audience and recollecting the shared experience that we had. I don't think there's anything like it, but it brings people together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need that.
Yeah, we do.
That was beautifully said, Courtney. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. We're going to wrap up the interview there. Don't go anywhere.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime, every time. And thank you guys so much for watching.